Sir, you can't park here. The driver looks confused. His engine is running, hazard lights are on, he's sitting in the car waiting for a friend outside a convenience store. Then, the officer says something that changes the entire encounter. License and registration. Now, the driver has a choice to make. Does he start explaining himself? Does he argue? Does he admit something he doesn't realize matters? Or does he understand the difference between a casual conversation, a parking violation, and a lawful detention? Because that difference matters more than most people realize. One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. And if you've ever been stopped over illegal parking, sitting in your car late at night, or questioned during a traffic stop that suddenly felt bigger than it should have been, this video matters to you. What do you do when the officer claims you violated parking laws? Can they order you out? Can they search your car? What should you say when the conversation starts turning into an investigation? Today, we're breaking down real police encounter patterns that happen every day across the country. Illegal parking, escalating traffic stops, fishing expeditions, consent searches, and the constitutional rights people accidentally give away because they talk too much too early. One wrong sentence can completely change the encounter. A simple, "Yeah, I was just waiting here for a while," can become an admission. A nervous joke can become suspicion. Consent to search can destroy your ability to challenge that search later. And arguing emotionally on the roadside almost never helps in the moment. This is not about winning against police. It's about protecting yourself legally while staying calm and safe. By the end of this video, you'll understand what officers are often looking for during these encounters, what mistakes people commonly make, and the exact phrases that can help you protect your rights without escalating the situation. Let's start with the first trap, turning a parking encounter into a criminal investigation. A lot of people think parking enforcement is minor. Sometimes it is, but officers often use small violations as a reason to initiate contact and begin gathering information. Watch how fast this changes. Why are you parked here? I'm just hanging out. How long have you been here? Maybe an hour. Have you been drinking tonight? Now the conversation has moved far beyond parking. The mistake people make is believing they must answer every investigative question. In many situations, you must provide identification during a lawful stop or when operating a vehicle, depending on state law and the circumstances. But that does not automatically mean you must answer broad investigative questions unrelated to identification requirements. The officer may be looking for inconsistencies, nervous behavior, admissions, signs of impairment, or anything that can justify extending the stop. And people often volunteer information trying to appear cooperative. That can backfire badly. A better approach is calm and controlled. "Officer, am I being detained or am I free to leave?" That sentence matters because it forces legal clarity. If you are free to leave, the encounter may remain voluntary. If you are detained, constitutional protections become more clearly defined. Notice what the phrase does not do. It does not insult the officer. It does not refuse lawful commands. It simply asks for clarification. That's important. Now let's talk about another common mistake: trying to argue the law on the roadside. Drivers love saying things like, "You can't stop me for this. This is unconstitutional. You're violating my rights." Even if you're correct, roadside debates usually make the encounter longer and more emotional. The officer is not going to conduct a constitutional law seminar beside your car. And emotionally escalating the stop can create additional problems. Instead, separate the roadside encounter from the courtroom challenge. You preserve issues legally later, you survive the encounter safely now. That distinction matters. Here's a smarter approach. "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." That sentence is one of the most important phrases you can know, because officers frequently ask questions designed to obtain consent. "You don't mind if I take a quick look, right? If you have nothing to hide, we're good, right?" Just trying to clear things up. Many people think refusing consent makes them look guilty. Legally, refusing consent is not evidence of guilt by itself. And once you voluntarily consent to a search, challenging that search later becomes much harder. And now pay attention to the wording. I do not consent to any searches. Not yelling, not arguing, not physically resisting, just clearly stating lack of consent. That matters because compliance and consent are different things. If the officer later searches anyway under another claimed legal justification, your verbal refusal may still become important later in court. And this leads to another critical mistake: physical resistance. Never confuse non-consent with resistance. If an officer orders you out of the vehicle, physically refusing can escalate the encounter immediately. Instead, comply physically while preserving your rights verbally. Here's the phrase: I am not resisting, but I do not consent. This works because it communicates two things at once. First, you are not creating a physical confrontation. Second, you are not voluntarily waiving constitutional protections. That distinction can become extremely important later. Now let's talk about the conversational trap that catches people constantly during traffic and parking encounters. Silence feels uncomfortable, so people start talking and talking and talking. Watch how quickly harmless conversation turns dangerous. Where are you coming from tonight? My friend's house. Have you had anything to drink? Just one beer earlier. What time was that? Maybe 2 hours ago. Now the officer has an admission tied to alcohol consumption. Even small admissions can become part of a DUI investigation, depending on the circumstances. And many people think honesty automatically protects them. Sometimes it does not. You do not help yourself by volunteering unnecessary details. A safer response in many situations is simple and respectful. I choose to remain silent. Or, I would like to speak to a lawyer. These phrases are powerful because they invoke constitutional protections directly. But wording matters. Saying, maybe I should get a lawyer, is not the same as clearly requesting one. Saying, I think I'll stay quiet, may not be treated the same as explicitly invoking your right to remain silent. Clarity matters. And once you invoke those rights, stop talking. That's the part people ruin. They invoke their rights and then continue explaining. Remember this: officers are trained conversationalists. Many are very good at keeping people talking, not because conversation itself is illegal, but because people frequently reveal damaging information voluntarily. Now, here's another trap people fall into during parking-related encounters: fast movements, reaching suddenly, digging around aggressively inside the vehicle. Remember, officers do not know your intentions in real time. Even innocent movements can increase tension quickly. If you need to retrieve documents, communicate first. My registration is in the glove compartment. My wallet is in my back pocket. Slow movements reduce misunderstandings. That protects everybody involved. Another issue people misunderstand is recording police. In many places, recording officers performing public duties is generally protected under the First Amendment, subject to reasonable safety limitations and local laws. But people get themselves into trouble by turning recording into confrontation, shoving phones close to officers, interrupting commands, provoking arguments for internet content. Recording is usually safest when done calmly and passively, not aggressively. And remember, legality can vary depending on state law, location, interference claims, and the specific facts of the encounter. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice. Now, let's address a major misconception. A lot of viewers think constitutional rights only matter if you're innocent. That's wrong. Rights exist precisely because investigations can be mistaken, exaggerated, or incomplete. Parking violations sometimes become fishing expeditions. Minor traffic stops sometimes expand into unrelated investigations. And once you start volunteering information, it becomes difficult to take it back. That does not mean police are automatically acting improperly. Some stops are completely lawful. Some officers are conducting legitimate investigations. But your job is not to help build a case against yourself accidentally. Your job is to stay calm, stay safe, and understand your rights clearly. Here's the framework that protects people most consistently. Stay respectful. Do not argue emotionally. Comply with lawful physical commands. Do not consent to searches. Ask whether you are free to leave. Invoke silence clearly if needed. Request a lawyer clearly if needed. And save the legal fight for court, not the roadside. Because the roadside is not where constitutional disputes usually get resolved. It's where mistakes get made. And the people who protect themselves best during police encounters are usually not the loudest people. They're the calmest. They understand the difference between compliance and consent. They understand the difference between conversation and interrogation. And they understand that one unnecessary sentence can completely change the outcome of a stop. The safest approach is simple. Stay calm, keep your hands visible, move slowly, provide required documents when legally required, do not consent to searches, do not physically resist, ask if you are detained, remain silent when appropriate, request a lawyer when needed. That framework will protect you far more effectively than trying to win an argument on the side of the road. And in the next video, we're breaking down another encounter that catches drivers off guard all the time, when officers ask passengers for identification during routine traffic stops, and what rights passengers actually have in that situation.